Hey everyone, I'm Mark, and today we're going to have a look at how to customize the cameras in Flight Sim 2024, whether it be in Walkaround mode, looking around in the cockpit itself, getting some cabin or wing views, as well as how to tweak the drone cam, because there are some quality of life improvements that we can do to all of them. First off, if you have an Xbox controller, it'll make using walk-around mode a whole lot more natural because it works exactly like it would with any other first-person or third-person video game. But for me personally, I actually just prefer to use the keyboard because it means it's one less controller that I need to keep around. By default, walk-around mode is bound to the classic WASD keys, and then you can use the mouse to look around and change your direction. Or alternatively, what you can do is use the I, J, K, and L keys to look up and down and left and right. However, this is going to be a little bit more janky than it will be with the mouse. If you'd prefer a third-person view instead, you can go into the settings for that. And under the advanced options, there's an allow third-person view camera here, which you can enable. And then from there, once you're back in the world, you'll want to make sure that you have a key bound to the cockpit external view mode binding. And by default, that's going to be the backspace key. And once you press it, you end up in third-person view, and the controls pretty much work exactly the same. The walk-around mode is great for exploring the world around you, but if you're trying to get more of a panning cinematic type of shot, you'll be better off using the drone camera because it gives you a lot more control over how it works, and we'll look at that in just a little bit. Once you've removed all of the wheel chocks and the covers for the airplane, you can head into the cockpit by pressing the Shift-C key. And now that we're here, we're actually going to look at how to set everything up so that all of the panels and the controls in the airplane are easily accessible as well. By default, the arrow keys on the keyboard are set up to look around the cockpit, but I have access to that with the hat switch on pretty much all of my controllers. So what I actually do is remap those arrow keys to instead move around the cockpit, and that's going to make it a whole lot easier to reach certain buttons on the instrument panel. The bindings that you're looking for to do that are the translate keys, so translate forward, backwards, left, and right. And if you need help figuring out how to set up all of those bindings, I covered how to do it in a previous video, which I'll have linked in the description for you. The only thing that's missing here is the ability to be able to move the camera view up and down. And for that, I binded the arrow key up and down in combination with the Alt key. So it increases the view height and decreases the cockpit view height. And that gives me the flexibility to easily go anywhere with just a few clicks. To quickly get back to the default view before we moved all over the place with the arrow keys, you can hit the Shift spacebar and that'll take you right back there. However, there's actually a lot more that we can do to make everything a little bit easier to access. Flight Sim actually comes with up to 10 custom camera views that you can save and load with a single button press, but by default these aren't all bound up properly, so a pretty common way to make this more accessible is to remap them to the number pad keys instead. In the control bindings, these are called load camera 0 to load camera 9. So it's really just a matter of going through and remapping all of them one at a time to the right numpad key. And then once you've got that done, of course, the next thing that you're going to need to be able to do is save those custom camera views to where you actually want them. The easiest thing to do for that is to remap the save custom camera bindings to use either the Alt or the Shift key in combination with a numpad key. So for example, to load camera 1, you would press button 1, but then to save the location for camera 1, once you've got it in the right spot, you would press Shift 1 instead. In terms of the actual position for the cameras, I always use camera 0, so number 0 on the numpad as my default flying position, because that's the one that you're going to come back to the most, and it is the biggest key on the numpad after all. I'll typically use key number 1 to look at the main instrument panel, or on an airliner, I would look at the CDU, with the number 2 key usually reserved for looking at the center pedestal. And the number 3 key is a little bit of a floater. In some cases, it'll look at a particular panel if it's a little bit hard to access, although oftentimes I'm going to use it to look directly at a tablet if there's a fixed position for it. Key number 5 will usually be a centralized view where I can see a little bit of everything. And then key number 8 will be to look at the overhead if there is one. And the neat thing about having the arrow keys mapped to move around is that even if there's something a little bit further away that I can't easily access from here, I can move around to get to it. The 4 and 7 keys, as well as the 6 and 9 keys, are what I use for my cabin or wing views. And it really seems like in Flight Sim 2024, it's a lot easier to get back there to set those up. And you can use the mouse to get yourself turned around and then use your remapped arrow keys to get wherever you want to set your camera view from. And then from here, you can save to one of your custom cameras. If for whatever reason the airplane you're flying doesn't allow you to get into the back, there is a little trick that you can do to get around that. And what you'll need to do is set yourself as far as you can to the right. And then in the camera views here, if you press on the co-pilot position, that's actually going to break you out of the flight deck. From here, you can temporarily save a view to any of your custom cameras, and then what you'll want to do is head back into the airplane with one of your other presets, and then if you head back to that view that you just saved, it's now going to allow you to move around to wherever you want. From there, it's really just a matter of getting into the right position for your camera view wherever you want it. So for example, let's say from about here. And now you can resave your custom camera view with the button that you just used, and you'll be able to access this view at the click of a button as well. That covers the basics, but to be able to easily go from the cockpit to the external camera and even the showcase camera, you're going to want to bind up a couple of keys to do that at the button press, because it is pretty annoying to always have to bring this window up to be able to do that. The keys that I like to use for that are also on the numpad, so I'll use the period key to toggle myself in and out of drone mode. I'll use the asterisk to toggle myself in and out of the cockpit. And finally, I'll use the enter key to toggle myself in and out of the external view mode, which you can manipulate with your mouse. Let's have a little bit of a closer look at the drone cam now, and you're going to find that the same keys that you use for walk-around mode also operate the drone. So WASD will move you around exactly like walking around, and then the I, J, K, and L keys will allow you to look up and down and left and right. And then finally, if you want to increase or decrease the height of the drone, you can use the Q and the E keys. There are a couple of extra key bindings that I do to make it easier to control the speed of the drone, which is annoying to control because you have to bring up the camera and it doesn't save these values from flight to flight. What I've done is the R and T keys control the drone rotation speed, so it allows me to look around quickly if I want, but then I can also slow it down a lot and I can easily get a very nice slow panning shot if I like as well. The F and G keys do pretty much the exact same thing, but for the drone speed, so it allows me to speed up when I want to explore a little bit faster, but then I can also slow it down if I need to as well. Although I don't use these next two keys as much as the other ones, I've also mapped the C key and the V key to control the drone follow mode and the drone lock mode. Follow mode stops the drone from moving with your plane, and it's especially useful when you want to set yourself up in a spot that's going to be near the runway and either catch a replay of your takeoff or landing. Although, as you can see, I still have the lock mode on right now, and it isn't always great at keeping the camera centered. For that reason, I actually end up disabling lock mode frequently as well, and then I control the movement myself by adjusting the drone rotation speed. If you learned something useful about setting up your cameras for Flight Sim 2024 today, make sure to like and subscribe on your way out.